Hi Mark, great to meet up with you in the range and start working on the game going into the 2014 season. Things are looking pretty good. The control of the ball is improving, and that's the main thing. Your ability to go from hitting the sort of pull and leak you onto the right to getting the draw going is becoming a much quicker process. You get back to the type of shot that you're visualising much easier, using this push spectrum to help a lot with that as well. And then what we did today was give you an understanding of what accumulator 4 needs to do during the downswing. So from P4 to P5, historically, I mean, this was an old swing going back to 2012, where there was a little bit of a lift as you got to the top. The arms would get a little bit long in the backswing. We're a little bit better than that now in the actual swing, as you can see here on the bottom left. Could still do with control and accumulator 4 a little bit more on the way back, and we touched on that during the session. So maybe a little bit shorter with the arm swing. Try and feel like the pressure is maintained a little bit longer under pressure point 5, under the base of the right bicep against the torso. Maybe sort of visualise Jason Duffner type idea, just to get the butt of the club back onto that elbow plane line and perhaps control accumulator 4 a little bit during the backswing. Having said that, what we were seeing was, historically, we saw accumulator 4 working sort of down, but out more than it worked down. So consequently, the butt of the club never got back onto the plane line. The shaft of the club was not shallow, and from P4 to P5, we get a situation where, let's get rid of that last line, we get a situation where the shaft is hitting you through the right shoulder. Now, at its worst, it could get above the right shoulder. In 2012, we've been working for quite a few number of months then to shallow things out a little bit during the backswing. So that's the move that we're trying to combat. So the feeling for you during the session was that the butt of the club worked straight down to the toe line from P4 to P5. So we're trying to get the butt of the club working down more, rather than all this sort of turning and flexing, and that's pulling the left arm out. It was almost like you were lowering the butt of the club by flexing forward, flexing the right knee, flexing the pelvis, flexing the right shoulder. What we're doing here is we're releasing accumulator 4 sooner, but we're releasing it in a downward manner. You can see when you do that, the shaft of the club now is hitting you much lower down, more sort of midway through the right bicep, and certainly much lower down than what we're seeing here. So it's just a piece that we're putting in place, and a move that we're putting in place to combat a move that historically has caused you problems. So that was you rehearsing it, so down to the toe line, and then during the hitting of the shot, try and get the same feel. And you can see now, if I take you back to P5, there's a marked difference between the two positions that we see on the top row. Shaft much more between the plane lines, hands much more in, arms angled much more inwards, right knee hasn't flexed as much, pelvis hasn't flexed and rotated out of the way quite as soon. So rather than having all this sort of flexing, turning and getting the butt of the club pulled outwards with a steepening of the shaft, what we've got now is we've still got a little bit of flex going in, that's fine. Still got a little bit of turn going in. But we're also just calming that down a little bit so that the rates at which we do things are a little bit better. That's going to present the club in a much better position at P6. We're just past P6 there, but you get the idea. So here we've got the club on the right, we've got the club on elbow plane, whereas now we're getting the club to shallow out onto hand plane. And as a result, we're going to require much less uncocking of the wrist, preventing the club getting too much across the line, and the right hand in particular, doesn't come off the grip quite as fast as you come through. You can see a massive difference there with the overall look of the swing. I'll just zoom that one in a little bit for you, make it a little bit bigger. How the right shoulders come forward less, the shoulders aren't as open, there's much less flexing in the spine, the hips and the knees, the right foot starting to bank in, popping up less. So that's a good move. Great drill for you, that one. If you can combine that with a little bit of the feel of hitting the medium push, you're a long way to improving things. On the actual shot, this was towards the end of your session, maybe even midway through the session, when we'd done a few of the drills, and then we're just trying to relax and put a swing on it. We see that we don't get the shaft in enough. We're still a little bit above plane coming through. But the important thing, and this was what we talked about during the session, we're trying to establish a baseline position for you, particularly at P5. So what we established was that for you to hit acceptable golf shots and control your ball flight, what we need at P5 is we need to make sure that the shaft is at least, a hand's width, or 3 or 4 inches beneath that right shoulder. So whilst it isn't as good as we see on the drill, I'll just pull that one back for you. It is moving, or the shaft at least, is moving in the right direction. And remember what we talked about, you load accumulator 2 quite aggressively in your downswing, so your shaft will never look as shallow as some people's who dump accumulator 2 sooner. So don't worry too much about the fact that it's a little bit on the steep side. The important thing is that we manage that position. So the image you're seeing on the top left is your drill, and the image you're seeing on the bottom left is the actual shot midway towards the back end of your session. Either of those are much more acceptable than what we see here. So we've got sort of a spectrum of shaft to right shoulder. And for us to get away from that sort of look that we have in the maroon sweater, we've got to work hard on the drill on the top left, which is firing accumulator 4 sooner and in a more downward direction, and that in turn is just shallowing things out. The arms are being pulled out a little bit less, and certainly through the hit the body doesn't flex forward quite as much and for quite as long. Good luck with it. I look forward to working with you further in the coming months, and like I said in the session, I think that a very good result is just around the corner. Good luck.